Welcome to Spirit of Madikwa, Africa's Majesty. We're going to take you on a journey to a real safari. All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to Spirit of Madikwa, Africa's Majesty. We received some interesting questions from you guys about buffaloes, antelopes, and actually this episode was designated to talk about exactly those things. Buffaloes are a very, very interesting species, and together with this goes antelopes. And what is interesting about this whole thing is really how do the national parks in South Africa and Southern Africa manage those animals, and how does this all play together? And again, we have Arthur with us today, and he is already very excited to talk to us about these things. So Arthur, your stage.
Good evening. Welcome back, guys. And it's good to be here again. So you were referring to those questions. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not mistaken, the one of the questions was about the elephant herds.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So Sally wanted to know why in the past elephant herds has been split up, but we're hesitant to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had to go and do a bit of research for this one because as much as I love my elephants, she almost had me in a corner on that one.
I can't imagine that.
The crux of the matter is, yes, in the late 70s and late 60s, there was elephant herds split up and moved to smaller reserves. But here comes the cracker. So most of those reserves that received elephants are very, very small reserves. So to give you an idea, we have a lot of private reserves in South Africa that operates as like timeshare places for South Africans. And they typically have smaller herds of elephants. So to give you guys an idea, so Mabula is like 8 elephants. I know in Mabalingwe they've got about 24 elephants. So it's very small groups that were relocated. Now, here's the catch. On all of those small reserves, the females are permanently under contraceptives. And being small reserves and being a small group of elephants, all these elephants show tendencies of acting out. They display the same psychological damage that the big herds that was relocated to Pilanesberg and Sluis and those places show. And that is why, at the end of the day, it took us a long time to learn. But once we've learned that by relocating these smaller herds, we are actually damaging the elephants. That's why a stop was put to it. And then if people would be interested, there is also evidence of elephants from previous culls in the Kruger that were actually became circus elephants. That's also not something we want to do. We don't, in principle, I think there is a lot of good points to having elephants in captive situations like zoos and circuses to a certain extent and all of that. But where the problem comes in is you cannot take an animal out of the wild and put him in captivity. If you're going to have animals in captivity, it's better for the animals to have animals that are captive bred.
Mm-hmm. So they don't actually know how it is in the wild.
Exactly. So, but this brings me to a very interesting story. The story of the 2 Pilanesberg elephants that used to be circus elephants. So that's also a very interesting. Turn to Africa, I think, was the book that was written by Randall Moore. And I think we did touch on it in the other episode.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
But it is an interesting book to get a hold of, Randall Moore, and then read how he brought those elephants back into the wild. But yeah, so that's the short and the long of it. Those things happened before we had the knowledge to know that we're doing something wrong.
And so what I also understood is now you have these small herds, these small groups, put it into some, let's say, small reserves, put them onto medication, contraceptives, so you don't really understand what's going on at all. And you then could only kind of put this into perspective once you learned it the hard way when you really relocated big herds. Is that the right understanding? Okay.
Exactly. And then the other thing is, it was a case of those smaller relocations were a case of where we were putting elephants in places simply for the reason of having elephants there.
Yeah.
And only later on did a lot of things become prevalent. Like, for example, in some reserves where the elephants are touted as free-roaming elephants, these small herds, there's not enough biomass in the reserve to feed them. So during the summertime, it's fantastic, but come wintertime, and all the trees are bare and everything, now you have to start supplementary feeding.
Oh.
And then you get into a whole lot of other dangerous situations where elephants start associating vehicles with food.
Oh, yeah, no, that's probably not the best thing to happen.
A very good example, if you look at the first episode when we spoke about the lions, as far as possible in Madikwe, they try and if there's any darting or anything of lions, to do it from a game viewer. Because in the past, it was done from normal pickups. And you must now see how those lions react to a normal pickup.
Oh, okay.
Because animals are clever enough to make that association. So once you've got elephants that associate a certain type of vehicle with food, now can you imagine the disaster if you happen to drive through that game reserve in a similar vehicle?
Well, that's like Pavlov, yeah.
Exactly. So now it's exactly like Pavlov's experiment. So these animals have now been conditioned that when they see the white pickup, it means food.
And the elephants realize, okay, there's a white pickup. Now I'm getting shot.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting situation that you end up with these elephants that at the end of the day, no matter which way you cut it, if you're going to take a small group of elephants out of a herd and relocate them somewhere, you're going to have abnormal behavior.
So this is something you have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that makes elephant relocations that I didn't touch on is the fact that what people sometimes forget is an elephant is not like most animals that I've been involved with relocating lions from the Kalahari to Limpopo. And in those cases, you would sedate the animal in the Kalahari and he wakes up in Limpopo. Because
was that incident that you talked about where you were sitting on that plane and the lion was almost waking up? No, that was another story, right?
No. I wasn't on the plane. I was involved with the relocation, but I wasn't on the plane. But one of the vets told me the story, which was actually quite interesting. So basically, the three lions were sedated in the Kruger, and they were flying them down to the Eastern Cape.
Okay, this way, yeah.
And when they had these about halfway, so now you've got three male lions lying in the back of a light aircraft, and the pilot is sitting up front, or the vet is sitting up front with the pilot. And it's only the two of them on the plane. And about halfway, the pilot turns to the vet and says, "You know what? I don't know if I should tell you, but this lion behind me is looking at me." So he actually started opening his eyes, and I think that can be very interesting.
Reminds me of this, this famous TV show, The A-Team, when they also had to sedate this B.A. Baracus because he didn't want to fly.
Yeah, exactly. It's a similar situation. But now with elephants, it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Because elephants are so big that if you sedate an adult elephant, you can't keep them down for very long. Because their own weight will actually crush their lungs.
Yeah.
So they can't breathe. So what you have to do with sedating, with moving an elephant, is you gotta dart the animal, get him down, get him into a container on the back of a truck, and then wake him up and get him to stand up. Now, keep in mind, this is an animal that normally walks 50, 60, 70 kilometers a day.
Yes.
So now he's standing in a container where you can basically move maybe 2 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Yes.
And you can't keep him in there for more than about 10, 12 hours.
I mean, that's already ridiculous. Like, is this container completely like closed, or can this elephant look out? Or, I mean,
there's normally some holes for them to look out, but very small. They can't stick their trunks out or anything like that.
Okay.
And they try and use open tops in the containers.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, that limits how far you can relocate an elephant. So that brings me to another thing, is theoretically speaking, if we decide to relocate elephants from the Kruger to manage the population, we could probably do it. If we could get a plane that's big enough to take a herd of elephants.
Oh, the A400M, maybe?
Yeah, maybe an Antonov or an American military Galaxy or something like that.
Yeah.
It's within the realm of possibility. I don't argue that point. But yeah, is my question. So how much is that going to cost?
I mean, how many elephants would you get into one of those planes? Probably not more than 4 to 6.
That's not really an issue. If you can fit. I mean, the last time I checked, I think it was close to 7 or 8 Abrams tanks that went into a Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
So if you take that into account, you should be able to. If you get 2 or 3 Galaxies, you should be able to move quite a big herd over a vast distance in 12 hours. Here's my problem.
So this is how we get all these elephants into Germany. Now I get it.
Oh yeah, well that would be the answer. I love that article, by the way. For the people that didn't see it, so the Botswana president threatened to send all his excess elephants to Germany because they want to stop trophy hunting.
Yeah, that is a whole other story.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. The point is, now you're looking at cost. So who's going to fund that? I mean, the problem with managing the Kruger Park is we've already established that the Kruger Park is not a money-making park. Once you've taken care of everything, you actually need extra forms of income for the Kruger Park. We need people to sponsor the park for anti-poaching and things like that because they don't have the money.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put it out there. Theoretically, it is possible to move herds, and it would be, but it is, like most things in life, theoretical. Because at the end of the day, cost, technology, all of those things. I mean, I still wonder what the US Air Force reaction would be if we say to them, we'd like to hire 3 Galaxies to move elephants.
Well, we do have a training course for new pilots, so.
That's a fantastic idea, but I wonder what that bill is going to be to get 3 Galaxies from the States to Africa, then do a trip through Africa, and then have them go back home. And then you also got to make sure that you've got landing strips that can handle that plane at the pickup point and at the drop-off point.
You just put a few parachutes on the elephants and just drop them.
Operation Dumbo Drop. Here we go.
No, but I mean, honestly, there was another item that we spoke about, Arthur, and that was, I mean, where would you actually, if you are now able to relocate an elephant and say the range of a Galaxy or Hercules is within 10 hours. So it's like a few thousand kilometers or miles. So you could theoretically put elephants into Kenya that has some issues. But then again,
How you deal with the issues that they have.
yes, I mean, you have a decent problem in Kenya still with hunting and poaching. So what you would basically do is you would put a herd of elephants, drop them into Kenya just to be shot. So not necessarily a nice idea, right?
Exactly. You kind of, at the end of the day, you just so basically the argument to say that we should move elephants to Kenya basically comes down to the fact that if we move them to Kenya and they get killed by poachers, that's okay. But if they get killed in the Kruger Park, it's not okay.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's basically the attitude there. But look, as I say, it is a conundrum that faces conservation.
yes.
I can tell you what my opinion is on the situation and what should be done, but it's just an opinion. Nobody has got the golden answer that's going to keep everybody happy and sort out the whole situation at the same time.
I mean, if there was something like the perfect answer that will keep everyone happy, then we wouldn't have any wars anymore. Huh?
Exactly. That's the thing. Yeah, that's the but we got dragged away. But in short, Sally, that's your answer. Is that the herds that were relocated in the past show the same tendencies as the bigger herds that was relocated later before we put a stop to it. And we need to be very careful because at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is it worth saving this animal's life if I'm going to traumatize the animal to the point where it basically has no quality of life?
Again, one of those decisions, opinions that, yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm not going to get into the philosophical part of it, but that's basically the point.
But those discussions are the ones that you would have in the evening after you had this great safari somewhere in the Kruger. You sit around the campfire, and those are the discussions that you will have.
Yeah, definitely, because at the end of the day, I believe that when it comes to conservation, the approach of a lot of people of saying we don't talk about population control of animals because it upsets people. Guys, if you're not going to talk about it, you're not going to find solutions.
That's how I figured it out. Yeah.
You know, and that's unfortunately a thing we need to start seriously talking about it. It's definitely something that we need to a very good example about why we need to talk about it. So do you know the story of elephants and bees?
Elephants and bees.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't. I think I
So
don't.
basically, the situation was this. In Tanzania and Kenya and in those places where you've got people living in wilderness areas, in small villages and stuff, you had a lot of animal conflict with lions, with elephants. Humans and animals just butt heads because humans will plant crops and the elephants will come and raid it. Humans will have cattle and the lions will come and kill them. It was a big issue for a very long time. Now the issue is not solved.
No.
But after watching a program about this, a little girl came up with a, and when I say little, I think she was about 11 years old. And this whole solution started when she wrote a letter to one of the biologists. And basically what it comes down to is there's one animal that elephants are scared of. And contrary to Disney's belief, it's not a mouse. It's bees. Elephants are terrified of bees. And it makes sense because if you got no hands and you've only got your trunk and you get tackled by a swarm of bees, it hurts.
And you can't scratch. Yeah.
Exactly. So she made a suggestion that can't bees be used to prevent animals from raiding crops? And eventually it led to this whole plan. What they would do is when people plant crops on the four corners of the planted area, they taught people to keep bees to farm bees in beehives. and then you connect the 4 beehives with a rope. So basically what happens is when the elephants walk in and they drag the rope, they pull the beehive off its stand, it falls off and all the bees get pissed off.
Okay, yeah.
And when the bees start swarming, the elephants decide, we're not sticking around for this, and they're out of there. So
that's such a smart idea, yeah.
Yes, but the point is, it stemmed from a letter written by a child. The reason why we should discuss all these things and should talk about is, who knows? Maybe somebody has got an idea that is worth gold.
Yeah.
But everybody stays quiet. And now, before we get 100 emails, I just want to say, I did mention that in the smaller reserve, the female elephants are kept on contraceptives, and that keeps control of the population. But in a big ecosystem, contraceptives is not an option. And the reason for that is simply logistics and the effects of the contraceptives. Because remember, if we give these animals these contraceptives, like lions, for example, you can contracept a lion and it should prevent the animal from getting pregnant for about 2 years. But here's the catch. Some females stay sterile permanently after they've been contracepted. So you're sitting in a situation where you might get to a point where you say, okay, now the population is getting low again. We're going to take the contraception away and let them breed, and then all the females are sterile.
No, that's not necessarily a good alternative.
It's not a good plan. The other problem is you sit with, in the Kruger Park, there's always a discussion about the elephant numbers. I'm just going to throw one out there that I read a while ago, 22,000 elephants in the Kruger Park. So let's say about 16,000 of them are females. Please explain to me how you're going to keep track of which one you've contracepted and which one you haven't.
This was actually that would have been my question now, because I know lions you can mark, there's not a lot of them. So you basically can keep track of them, but the amount of elephants, you don't mark them, right?
Yeah, no, it's not possible. It's not possible to logistically. Whereas on a reserve where you've got, say, 24 elephants, it's not difficult. If you've got 24 elephants on a reserve, it's probably because you can't handle more elephants like that on your reserve. So you don't want them to breed in the first place. So you just keep them on contraceptives permanently.
Yeah.
And you contracept all the females on their schedule. It's a doable logistical operation. Yeah, it's not going to work in a place like the Kruger or even in Addo. And even if you look at Pilanesberg is getting to the point where the elephants there are close to overpopulated. So now even the places that we moved elephants from the Kruger to are getting overpopulated. So yeah, this elephant thing is a real dilemma.
I think we might really have to dig a bit more into this. I think you shared that story with me that at some point in the not too distant past, there must have been a predator that hunted elephants.
Well, I don't think there ever was a predator that hunted elephants. I know which conversation you're referring to, and I think we were talking about the pronghorn antelope in America.
Probably, I don't know.
But with elephants, the general population managing mechanism would have been their migratory routes, because we know that elephants migrated all through southern Africa. If you migrate from the Kruger Park to the tip of Africa, you've got to go through the Karoo.
Okay, well, and that solved a lot of problems already, yeah.
Well, no matter which time of year you go through the Karoo, you're going to lose some elephants because there's not enough water.
Yeah.
So that would have been your population control mainly. And then there's also evidence if you want to bring the predators in, there is also evidence, like in areas in Botswana, there are prides of lions that specialize in hunting elephants because it's an abundant food source, and they've cracked the code. They figured out how to do it, although it's not very nice to see. It's not a sighting I would enjoy.
No.
But it does happen. Yeah, because at the end of the day, those elephants basically get eaten alive. The lions tend to chase them into places like in the Okavango Delta, into the mud plains where they get stuck.
Oh, okay, so they can't get out anymore.
Exactly, and then they eat them at their leisure.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's that's the thing, not everything in nature is always beautiful,
No.
but it is amazing though. So yeah, so I think that's about the answer to that question about the elephants. And then if you would care to remind me, what other questions did we get?
It was then again about buffaloes in general and antelopes, and how they are managed actually. All right. So this was a follow-up of the question from some of you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. The discussions about conservation of buffaloes and antelopes we will have in the next episode. So thank you very much, and yeah, like if you do, and please leave us comments about what else you want to know. Thank you very much. See you next time.